Yes.
Were there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
No, I make a motion to accept the minutes as written. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by John to accept the minutes and seconded by Zach. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Mrs. Burns, would you read our first ordinance, please?
An ordinance pursuant to section 709.023 of the Ohio Revised Code for expedited type 1 annexation, setting forth what services the city of Circleville, Ohio will provide to the 54.49 acres, more or less, of land proposed to be annexed to the city of Circleville, consenting to such an annexation and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This ordinance comes to us from the Service Department, and we have our city planner, Ms. Hannah Wynn, here this evening. Could you tell us a little bit more about this, please?
Yeah, so this is about 54 acres, as Melissa said, around the Circleville City Schools. It is currently in Circleville Township, proposing to be annexed to the city. This is for a development. Highland Real Estate is the developer there. They've started this petition, went to the county commissioners, and they passed a resolution kind of doing their approval of this annexation petition. From there, it went to the Circleville Township, Circleville City Joint Planning and Zoning Board that was established by the annexation agreement that we have with Circleville Township. And that board recommended approval for this annexation. So this is the next step in that process. If you choose to move this forward, it'll go on to city council, and then they already have a planned unit development application in, the preliminary PUD application in, and there's a public hearing scheduled with the Planning and Zoning Commission on December 4th. So this goes through, they're already on the agenda to move forward with their development.
Very good. So Circleville Township has been notified. They're aware. I assume their board members would report back to them.
Mhm.
So there's no surprises for anyone here.
Nope.
Very good. Are these single-family homes that are being proposed?
They have 4 sections to the development. There is going to be a kind of neighborhood business section that is on the western piece of property on the west side of Brook Hill. And then the larger chunk is going to be split into 3 sections. Along 22 is going to be a general business retail section. As you move back onto the property, there will be a section of duplexes or paired units, and then there will move back into some single family lots of varying sizes. So there's a total of 170 residential units, and then those 2 different neighborhood and then general business sections.
Okay, very good. So it sounds like a combination.
Yep,
Do
definitely.
you have any questions for Hannah?
Well, I think it sounds great.
I have a comment. So there's a timing issue, correct? So what is the earliest this could go to the council agenda?
I think December 3rd is that date. There is a 60-day waiting period from when the county commissioners passed that on, or that the city received it from the county commissioners. 60-day waiting period, and then council is to take action on the annexation at their first regular meeting after that 60-day waiting period is up. So that's how we get to that December 3rd date
Okay.
for action.
Okay, so it would not actually go to the next council meeting, but it needs to go to the December 3rd council meeting then.
That's correct.
Okay. May I have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to forward this to the December 3rd council meeting with recommendation for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brooks, a second by Mr. Moats. Mrs. Burns, would you please call the roll?
Tice,
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Moats.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Is there something else on the agenda?
Not for you.
Okay, I just have one thing. We can
Sure,
come back
go
to
right
it
ahead.
later. I just wanted to announce that we did get the Clean Ohio grant for the acquisition of the 2 roughly 24-acre parcels that we've kind of been discussing
Very
with you
good.
all. One on Pickaway Street and one on North Court Street. So we just heard that last Friday that we were funded for that. So we'll be moving forward with the purchase of those properties.
Excellent. Those are our parklands, right?
Yeah.
Along the
Yes.
creek and then up on North Court Street?
Yep.
Next to the new development?
Yep. So
Awesome.
yeah, one's 23 acres, the other was 24. So 2 new additions to our park system. That's one thing. And the other, we have closed on the property on Atwater Street, just to the north of the school. And I've started putting surveys out for kind of what the neighbors would want to see there. So we're kind of working on creating a plan for that property. So a lot of good news for the park system.
Yes, that's all excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
It's a good day for Circleville citizens and the children of that neighborhood up north.
Definitely. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Burns, would you read the next resolution?
A resolution of the City of Circleville supporting the Ohio Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial America 250 Ohio.
Thank you. We have Elizabeth Furness here from the Visitors Bureau who would like to talk a little bit more about the semi-quincentennial celebration.
Absolutely. We're looking at a resolution, not only with the city, but also the county. The county has currently filed the resolution, completed, and so it has been submitted to the committee. What we are looking at is many grants that are available are looking at a coordinated effort. Many communities are partnering with their county, kind of a stronger as one and not having conflicts. And then also looking at grant applications. America 250 has small grants available. The next grant application is available in January. The resolution does need to be filed in the paperwork by the end of December. So we would be looking at compiling a committee. I think we've looked at least 12 to 14 at this point, members of different organizations.
Great. Do you have a point person in mind yet that you might ask?
The Visitors Bureau has stepped forward to say that we will spearhead this with many other other organizations,
Excellent. Thank
and then also have our 501c3 as a financial arm for that.
Yes, yes. So if anyone is not familiar with this, this is to celebrate the 250th birthday of our nation. A few of us around here remember the 1776, to 1976 celebration. That was really exciting. I hope that the government does something visible like the barns that were painted for that 200th year celebration. That was pretty special. So I hope there's something like that. And I know you'll be working on local events, right?
Correct.
To commemorate our local history and how it has played into that.
And then I'm a partner within the Ohio committee as well.
Great,
So we'll have representation there.
great. You have any questions or thoughts? Okay, well,
Okay.
we'll entertain a motion.
Make that motion to forward this on to our next council meeting on the 19th with recommendation for, is it
Adoption,
adoption? Yeah.
adoption, yes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brooks, seconded by Mr. Moats to adopt the resolution. Mrs. Burns, please call the roll.
Tice,
Yes,
Brooks,
Yes.
Moats.
Yes.
okay. That will be forwarded to council. All right, the last thing we have on our agenda this evening is volunteer appreciation Christmas cards. Last year, we started an effort to appreciate our volunteers that serve on the boards and commissions for the city, show them that we really do value their input and their service. And we started having a ice cream social in the summertime. And then we also sent out Christmas cards. So I showed you both a sample of the Christmas cards that we sent last year. I think they were very well received. We got some good positive feedback. People were pleased to be remembered. So if you would like to continue doing this, we can forward it to the full council. The cost on this is less than $200. I looked it up for 50 cards. It's going to be around $125, and they are personalized with Circleville City Council in there, and then we can sign them. And then stamps they're now 73 cents a piece. So that's, roughly $37. So, here again, we're in the ballpark of 165, 175, something like that. I don't have an exact figure, but it's pretty reasonable. So just wanted to bring that to the committee and see what you thought.
I mean, I personally like the idea to send it out to them and
Mhm.
appreciate them and show them we still appreciate them. But you could still give me ice cream if you want. I like that too.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah, the
not an
cards
either
are
or.
nice. Yeah, oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah, okay, so,
It's in addition to.
okay. Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, well,
So what do you need? A motion
well,
to,
just a motion to send the idea to take it to our council meeting next week.
okay, so I'll make that motion to take it to council on the 19th then.
I'll second that.
Zach seconds. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. Do you have anything else for us to discuss this evening?
I do not. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do that so we're safe.
Yeah.
Let them tell us no in the
Yeah.
future.
All the people down there in the bars. Yeah, but it's central. I mean, you can get down to that side or that side, Toodles and all those bars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring that up with Sherry.
He's an interesting.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
Mics are going on.
You guys are all worried about.
Right on. We'll do. Thanks, Dave.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
My name right after a few months.
Once I decided.
John Morgan, right?
Stay and not gonna leave.
I didn't know you were there. I would have come out.
That.
That question came.
I'm not.
She was up then. Okay, let me live.
And I was really worried.
Let me live high. Okay, let me.
No,
let
it's
me-
not anything, nothing,
Out of the ordinary.
nothing out of the ordinary, just procedural,
But anyway,
procedural.
yeah, that was a big win, wasn't it?
Good effort.
Call the committee of the whole meeting to order. It is Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024 at 6 PM. Melissa, could you please do a roll call?
Keller,
Here.
Hedges,
Absent.
Tice,
Here,
Blitzka,
Here.
Hallinan,
Here.
Moats,
Here.
Brooks,
Here.
Duval.
Here.
Great, thank you very much. Committee should have received a copy of the minutes from the September 3rd, 2024 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Jeff Hallinan, second by John Moats. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, that brings us to the business portion of tonight's meeting. The first thing we have, as you know, we have a vacancy in the clerk's position. And we posted the position on our website and we received 3 applicants. I want to thank John Moats and Sherry Tice for reviewing the applicants. Sherry was unavailable for the interviews, but John was there to assist me and the HR director. We did interview the 3 applicants, and the top scorer of those 3 applicants was our assistant clerk, Melissa Burns. So the ordinance in front of you tonight is to appoint Melissa Burns as our council clerk. That that position pays $5,000 per year. And if council approves the ordinance at the next regular council meeting on November the 19th, she would be sworn in that night as our council clerk under new business. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion to forward this on to council, please.
Motion to forward to council for the November 19th meeting, seconded by Tom Duval. Roll call, please, on the motion to forward it to the full council for November the 19th.
Tice,
Yes,
Blitzka,
Yes.
Hallinan,
Yes.
Moats,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Duval.
Tom?
Yes.
It will go up for its first reading on November the 19th. All right, the second part of our evening, you know, council, back in August, we passed an ordinance to hire Paul Pride as a law enforcement expert to come in and assist the city and the Circleville Police Department to do a review of our Circleville Police Department. There was a work job scope prepared for Paul, which he has reviewed. And I would be safe to say that he's talked to dozens of people since we have hired him. And he is here tonight to give the public and city council his report. So Paul, you're welcome to come to the podium. Paul, everybody has a copy of your report. I just want to let you know I've already given it to the media.
Okay.
And if you could, just a brief introduction about your past,
Okay.
of what your work history is, and we'll let you get right to your report.
Okay. Well, there is one other document. I'm not sure that you have it. You have the organizational chart.
No, you can give it to the clerk and she'll distribute it for you.
So I'll extend my greetings to President Keller and members of council, Law Director Kinney, and Safety Director Rob Ware, and members of the public. My name is Paul Pride, and I'll kind of read most of this. I'm not going to read the entire report that's in front of you for the sake of time, but I'll read this just so that I can keep track of where I am with the presentation. My name is Paul Pride, and I have the privilege of working for this city as a consultant for the past couple of months. And just a really short note about who I am and my background. I currently live in Baltimore, Ohio. I am a Marine Corps combat veteran. I served 7 years in the Marine Corps. I retired after 30 years of service with the Ohio State Highway Patrol, with almost 20 years of that time as a command level, with command level experience. I've been a post commander, a district commander, a special operations commander, an assistant superintendent of operations for the Highway Patrol, and I spent 6 years, almost 6 years, as the superintendent of the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol, as you know, is one of the largest law enforcement agencies in Ohio and is recognized nationally as a leader in the industry. I'm also a graduate of Ohio University, Ohio's oldest university, and I attended the FBI National Academy, the Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command, the FBI National Executive Institute, and the U.S. Army War College Staff Ride. I was presented with a scope of work for this consultation, and in that was a request for a comprehensive examination of various aspects of the department's operations, organizational policies and practices, and then to make a clear and actionable list of recommendations for improvement. I have prepared that document that is in front of you. The document also includes not only my findings, but a few recommendations that I would have for the city and for the police department. I'll work through that document, but I won't read, like I said, every single word of that document. We had a meeting, just a briefing earlier, late last week. We set aside 2 hours, and 4 hours and 15 minutes later, we were done. So, but you will not be here that long this evening. There's an incredible amount of details that could be included with each of the bullet points in that document, and I will refer to them maybe from time to time as rabbit holes. And we could go down a few of those rabbit holes, and we could spend a great deal of time talking about, and we can, at your request, talk about anything and everything that's included in that report. If there's questions that you have, I want to make sure that I answer those questions as best I can. Again, I'd be glad to emphasize any of the information or recommendations included in the document. And my initial focus was to determine where the police department is. And I've said this to quite a few of you, that you have to, when you start one of these processes, you have to kind of figure out where they are. And so you have to understand where you are before you can figure out how to get where you want to go. If you want to go to Columbus, and I've shared this before, if you want to go to Columbus, the first thing I need to know from you is, where are you now, right? I can tell you how to get to Columbus, but I need to know where you are. And so that's what I tried to do with the police department, try to figure out exactly where they are. We all know where they want to go, and that's to be a premier law enforcement agency, serving the people, the citizenry here in the city of Circleville. So some of the work that I did was just trying to figure out exactly where they are. And then once I figured out where they are, where you are as a city, where the police department is, knowing where they want to go, then my responsibility becomes sort of like a GPS unit. I'm going to give you I would give them a couple of different routes to get them to their goal. And so with a couple of different options to go in a multitude of directions to get where they want to go. One of the things that I did not do, I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to investigate previous administrations. In my contact with enough of you all here from council and different folks within the administration and people in the public, and talking to the police department, and in that process of trying to figure out where they are, I learned enough about the previous administration that I didn't need to go into an investigation of those folks. And so that's really not all that important, although you need to know where you've been so that you don't repeat those errors and make those same mistakes again. My focus was more on trying to figure out exactly where they are and the future of the organization and getting leadership in place and providing the leadership with the tools they need to succeed and helping them increase their confidence in their own operations and at the same time gaining the trust and confidence of the Circleville community. So let me start with the report and I'll work my way through that document and I'll start on page 1, paragraph 5. And I won't read the entire thing, but there's a couple of different pieces here that I want to make sure that we all are very clear on. Police departments across our nation are facing challenges not unlike those faced in previous generations of law enforcement. Limited resources, strained manpower allocations, recruiting and retention shortfalls, tight or often reduced budgets, and unpopular views of the occupation in society have constantly plagued the profession. Sound familiar, right? Previous generations of law enforcement have experienced these issues. However, today's law enforcement agencies seem to be experiencing many of these issues simultaneously. Thus, the need for senior members of the agency to exercise the highest degree of leadership, authority, judgment, discretion in the overall administration and management of the department. A lack, and here's a key statement, a lack of these values by leadership tends to create a toxic environment internally and a fractured relationship externally with the community at large. And then if you go to page 2, about halfway down the first paragraph, there's a sentence that starts with during the review process. During the review process, I have utilized my previous network of professional subject matter experts throughout Ohio to assist the Circleville Police Department in many areas. This approach allows the police leadership to take immediate action to address the deficiencies in the operational and administrative areas. This process also allows for a degree of project management to take place while I continue reviewing other areas of operations and administration. And so while we were going through some of these things, I was trying to help put some of the fixes in place as we go. Instead of getting to the end of this 45-day period, submitting a report to you, there's a bunch of information here with a bunch of bullet points, and then have at it, whatever you desire to do with it. So as we went along, some of the things that we did is try to actually plug the leadership of the police department into those folks, into those associations, into those entities, whether it's the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police, the Ohio Peace Officers Training Commission, whether it's another police department, whether it's LEADS, whether it's NCIC. There's a lot of different entities that we reached out to and actually allow them to start making the changes and the needed modifications right away instead of waiting until we have a final report somewhere down the road. So I want you to know that every effort is being made to help develop a proven management system of written directives, sound training, clearly defined lines of authority, and routine reports that support decision-making and resource allocation. These actions will result in greater professionalism and accountability within the department. This hands-on approach that we have taken to assist the agency has proven beneficial. On Monday, October 28th, 2024, Chief Kenny Fisher took the oath of office with a blank canvas. This is both an exciting and challenging time as he begins to rebrand the image of the Circleville Police Department. His leadership will serve to inspire and equip the men and women under his watch to attain the highest levels of professionalism. As a team, they must continually work to create and maintain meaningful and sustainable law enforcement practices. These practices will build trust and confidence with a community that continues to grow and develop exponentially. And so then I'll jump down to the goals of the Circleville Police Department. This is where we are trying to help the police department get to. And the first one there, the first tab is professionalism and accountability. And we're looking for, out of your police department, we're looking for a commitment to professionalism. The men and women of the department are committed. The men and women of that department are committed to professionalism. They are very young. The average years of service for the police officers over there is 2 years. And so they are very young, and that can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. They are passionate about the fact that they want to be, if you go over there and talk to them, and I know that many of you have, they want to be a premier agency. But they need good leadership, they need training, and they need resources. And those are some things that they have not been provided in the past. Adherence to industry standards. They adhere to the standards they are made aware of. And the key to that is they don't know what they don't know. And so there are some things that have surfaced over this time that I have got to spend with them, that when I ask a particular question, I get the deer in the headlights look from them because they have no idea what I'm talking about. And this is not the fault of the people that are there right now. This is a failure. This is a failure by previous administrations, previous leadership to invest in those folks in a couple of different ways. And I'll speak to some of those as we kind of go through this document. Accountability for practices, policies, and procedures. Accountability has not been consistently applied, and policies and procedures need updating. And that's, you could say that to a lot of agencies across the state. That should be a constant process of updating policies and procedures. That has to be something that is continually looked at. Enhance public trust. We want them to be able to build trust and confidence. This process has already begun. I have spoken with each of you individually, and one of the things that I have observed, I have also spoken with a number of folks in the community and the administration, and there is a great deal of optimism about your police department. And I will just say this, it's not written down there, but I believe that there was some toxicity, regardless of how that was created or who created it. There was toxicity existed. And I believe that as we stand here in this place right now, I believe that that toxicity is gone. And I think that you have a fresh, a clean canvas, as I spoke about earlier. I think the police department has a clean canvas. And I think there's some exciting things just ahead for you and the law enforcement in this community. Assuring citizens, build trust and confidence. Assuring citizens the agency follows guidelines is transparent and ethical. This is paramount with a police department. Incidents of leadership over the past year have not served to assure the citizens of Circleville that they should have confidence in the police department. This must be overcome with new leadership. New leadership has to be able to overcome that. And there's a number of ways they can do that, and I'll share that again with you here in just a few minutes. Operational improvements, self-assessments, and external reviews. You have to self-assess. And I don't believe that, from what I have seen over there, I don't think there was much self-assessment that was going on. And I also don't think that there was a great deal of interest in any external reviews of the operations of the police department. Those are both necessary and critical to being able to perform better. And a couple of notes that I made about the self-assessments is it enhances operations. It gives you a realistic view of current situations, and it helps you try to figure out alternative avenues to accomplish tasks, right? In other words, the old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And so there's more than one way to do some of those administrative functions within a police department. And you have to find the right fit for you. And you do that through self-assessment and sometimes even through external reviews. Better resource allocation. You must work smarter, not harder, right? They don't have all the resources in the world at the police department, and they must learn how to work smarter and not harder. They need to streamline processes, and they need to engage. Mid-level management must manage and not simply monitor the processes that go on at the police department. We have a tendency to become a little bit laxed in our oversight because that's just the way it works. We've watched the machine, we've watched it work before, and we just get used to stepping back, and instead of managing it, rolling up our sleeves and actually managing some of the administrative processes especially, we just step back and begin to monitor those, and that's when they get out of kilter. And so they must manage the process. Increase efficiency. What are those? The way to increase efficiencies is to try and stop every once in a while and try to figure out whether or not the things that you're doing, do they really need to be done? Every once in a while you want to stop and you just want to blow things up and then put it back together and see if you got any extra parts. If you do, you probably didn't need those parts. Really what you're doing is you're blowing things up and you're trying to figure out whether or not it's accomplishing the original task that you designed it to accomplish. And if it's not, then you need to stop doing those things. But you also need to look at things that you're not doing, and what are those things that you're not doing that you need to start doing. And again, that comes back to, yes, ma'am.
Oh, go ahead and finish your sentence.
That just comes back to the idea of you don't know what you don't know. And if you've not been exposed to either training or you don't have the experience, you're not going to know some of these things if they've not been presented to you before. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if you have recommendations on how often the self-assessments and the external reviews should be done? Is that built into your report?
Well, I think the self-assessments, it depends on exactly what function you're actually looking at. I think there are some functions that you can look at maybe annually. There should be annual reviews of a lot of different things, and I'm not sure that is being done, but there should be an annual review of a number of different things. You should be able to go through most of your policies and procedures in a year's time, constantly reviewing those, especially those things that are really important, use of force, de-escalation, pursuits, all those kind of things. That kind of stuff needs to be reviewed on a regular basis. I think some of the other things, periodic reviews, there are a number of different ways you can go about doing that. Some of those are through CALIA, which is a national accreditation process, but there's also, and those are expensive to some degree. They're very valuable, but there are some that are actually free. The Ohio Collaborative has an accreditation process that is absolutely free, and they'll actually walk you through and help you with that accreditation process. But it takes time and it takes manpower, and so while you can use that accreditation process, I would suggest that the police department use the accreditation process and those standards. There's 31 standards. They can use those to actually continue to build the foundation of the department right now. But I would say that attempting to go to the accreditation process at this moment would be an incredible waste of time. There's some foundational things that need to be built upon before you get to that point. But you use those accreditation pieces to actually build the foundation so that when you get done, you're already in compliance with the accreditation process. And so that accreditation process is every 2 years, every 3 years. So the more complex it is, the more often you should be looking at it. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So let's go down to risk reduction. Everybody wants to mitigate risks. You need to identify areas for improvement, and you do that through those audits and through those reviews, internal assessments, external assessments. Identify areas for improvement, and I've got listed here on a couple of my notes. Training. The training has been neglected in your police department. Training is deeper. It must be deeper than the things that come across the computer. You sit down, you log in, you go through, you check a couple of boxes, and you're done with your training. In this line, there may be a line of work out there that is acceptable. This line of work, that is not acceptable. Not when we have a responsibility to, when we're operating in an environment that is so complex and so diverse, a lot of this training has to be hands-on. You cannot, and I used earlier today, I used a reference to firearms training. You cannot go and do firearms training on a computer and work through that process and answer a bunch of questions. You actually have to go out there and put rounds down range, and you have to think about things like breathe, relax, aim, stop, squeeze. You have to think about things like sight alignment and sight picture. You have to think through those things. You have to think about your stance. You have to think about your breathing. You have to think about all those things. And that's just one aspect of training is firearms. And so you have to get more hands-on training for the folks in your department. Communication. Opening lines of communication. I think there has been a reluctance to communicate. I felt that today. I had some conversation with some folks over at the police department today, and they have been apprehensive about having communication with supervisors for a long, long time. In fact, so long that I'm not sure they know how to do it. And if they do know how to do it, they don't know how to do it well. And so, it's this thing where most of the communication has to be adversarial, or it has to be in the form of some kind of internal affairs investigation. And so to avoid an internal affairs investigation, we just don't say anything. And that's dangerous. We need to have conversations with the people that are working for us and with us. So communication is incredibly important. Clearly defined lines, duties and responsibilities. To reduce risk, everybody has to know who's responsible for what. And so we have to clearly define those duties and responsibilities. And you need some public, not you, but the police department needs some public information training for all of their supervisors. They need to understand how to talk to the media and how to engage the media. Implement best practices. I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but networking is absolutely critical to the operation of a police department and the police supervisory level. And also have down there something, in regards to the Ohio Collaborative and accreditation. Again, those are some of the best practices that you're going to find is through that accreditation process. Reduce liability, training for all personnel. You're going to hear that a lot. Training. Roll call and read and sign. Those are things that police officers do on a regular basis, and that there needs to be better supervisory oversight of that. And there also needs to be an engagement with the prosecutor and the law director's office for legal updates and for training through and by, and they have offered that in the past, and nobody has taken them up on those offers. And that is something that is absolutely critical when you're talking about case law and legal updates. That needs to be understood by the people that are going out and working the street, because they're constantly changing and they're constantly being updated. And engaging with the law director's office and the prosecutor's office is a critical piece of making sure that we're staying on top of case law and updates. Everybody wants to work in an environment where we are constitutionally sound. We want to be making the right decisions. And so it's important to engage our legal folks in that effort. Policy and procedure updates and consistent periodic reviews. I've mentioned that already. Improve employee morale, demonstrate professional image. The way you carry yourself, the way you dress yourself, the way you groom yourself, the way you speak, the words that you use, you demonstrate professional image. That needs to be done at all times. And sometimes, and I've mentioned this a couple of different times, and I mentioned it to my own folks when I was the colonel of the Highway Patrol, we have to watch how we talk, and we have to even guard that in our personal lives, because those are the words that will come out when you are in a critical situation. When you have an adrenaline dump, those are the kind of words that are going to come out. And sometimes I've heard myself say words that I do not use. And so, but being cognizant of that, right, and being aware of that, and policing yourself, so to speak, in the way that you behave, the way that you carry yourself, because the bad guys are watching in this line of work. The bad guys are watching us all the time, and they're sizing us up. And so you have to demonstrate a professional image, not just to the bad guys, but to one another in the brotherhood and sisterhood of law enforcement. And you do that, and you can build confidence levels of the employees. You need to speak words of encouragement and appreciation into the people that work for you. I'm not so sure that that has been done in a long, long time in your police department. Validate hard work and dedication of all employees, and this is something that you need to recognize people when they do something good, and it needs to be immediate. That does not get done. That has not been getting done. But it's something that they have been made aware of, and it is incredibly important. We have a whole section. We have the Highway Patrol has a whole section of people who investigate do administrative investigations of when we have someone who has filed a complaint on one of our officers, or something has gone wrong, or they've done something wrong, or they've violated policy or procedure. We have a whole section of people who investigate that and get to the bottom of those matters, and rightfully so. But what we don't have is, and what often we fail to do is have a section that actually acknowledges the good work and the hard work that people do on a regular basis. And some of these things will foster a sense of pride and commitment amongst staff. We need to seek access to resources. Again, going back to networks and networking opportunities. What are the training opportunities? There's free training out there. If you search long and hard, you can find those things. And the use of other agencies' resource. If I could tell a police chief or a colonel someplace, if you were going to be good at one thing, it's be good at managing your resources and be good at managing other people's resources. If you have if you have an Alzheimer's patient lost in the woods tonight, right, and you need a helicopter, you don't have a helicopter in Circleville. But at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you find out you have an Alzheimer's patient lost in the woods and it's getting cold, and you need a helicopter with a flare unit at 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to know who to call. And we don't need to go through 15 or 20 different phone calls to get there. You need to call one phone number. You need to know who that phone number is too. You need to have a personal relationship with that person. You need to network with those agencies, and you need to be the one, as the chief of police, to manage those resources, even though you don't own them. Know who to call at 2 o'clock in the morning. Be a good manager of all resources, even if you don't own them. And so now I'm going to kind of like pick up a little bit of speed here. But the organizational composition for the police department, this is something that there's an ordinance for the composition of the police department. And if you look at that organizational chart that we handed you, that is the proposed organizational chart. That is an organizational chart that I would propose to you. I have worked in that chart, and I have served in every level of that chart, and I know that chart forward and backwards, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that works. That does not look like the organizational chart that you currently have for the police department in the city of Circleville. There is more of a straight line below the chief of police. There's a deputy chief, there's a captain, and then it breaks out into your first line supervisors. And what happens there is that you've got a straight line up and down. And in my mind, what that leads to is the people in that line become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's dangerous in police work. And so those people that are in that chain of command, especially in the command level positions, they need to be the subject matter experts. They need to be the people who know the business of running a police department. And so if you look at that organizational chart, it has the police chief at the top, and it has a captain of support or administration on one side and a captain of operations on the other side. So instead of having a deputy chief, you have two captains. Those are both exempt employees. They are outside the bargaining unit. In the absence of the chief, they have signature authority. They can make decisions and continue to move the organization forward. They can also impose discipline, all of those kind of things that doesn't kind of create any kind of problem with bargaining units. And so everybody below those captains are within the bargaining units. And that top line there, except for the maintenance and the records secretary, everyone there is a first line supervisor. And so the changes to that from what the current composition is that there would be, you would eliminate the deputy chief, you have 2 captains, you're going to have a dispatcher supervisor, which already exists in the composition, but you're adding a 4th sergeant to the mix. And that should be a detective sergeant because there are investigations that are ongoing that are not getting the oversight that they need within the organization. And some things are getting missed, or there is a great potential for things to get missed in the investigation. And a real quick example would be a day shift guy goes on a call and starts an investigation. He ends his shift 7:30 that evening. One of the afternoon units goes to a call and he gets, and it's related, but they don't know that, right? And so now you've got 2 guys investigating the same incident on different shifts and nobody's really making that connection. Nobody's reviewing those investigations to see that these 2 are connected and put those together. And so we have 2 guys basically investigating the same incident. Does that make sense? And so you can eliminate that kind of redundancy by having somebody who reviews those things and makes those connections, and also improves the quality of the investigation, starts asking the investigator questions about why did you do this, did you do that, and kind of cleaning up some of the investigations. And so that's what that detective sergeant would be for. And so a couple of things real quick that I did notice as soon as I got here and started looking at some of the the administrative operations of the department was that just about everything funnels to one person inside the administration part of the department, and that someone is Jody Chapman. And so everything gets run to her, and she basically does a boatload of work. And so when you do that, things are going to get missed, and things are going to get dropped, and things are going to get delayed. And so the current composition actually allows for a second secretary. And so the chief, at the time, the acting chief asked for that position to be posted. It was posted. A second secretary to divide some of those duties and responsibilities so that she is not absolutely overwhelmed with the workload that's in there. And if you're not over there every day, you may not understand the volume of work that comes in there. But if you go over there and sit and just watch the operations for a day, it would convince you that she needs some help. And so they have done that. The posting has come down. Interviews are being scheduled, I believe. There was also a position that was posted for a part-time police officer. The evidence locker needs attention. The evidence in that place needs attention. And there's a lot of different pieces of that. And there's a number of rabbit holes we could go down, and I could spend a great deal of time talking about that. But that part-time police officer is going to primarily be an evidence locker custodian. He actually begins November 18th. And so that is going to help rectify some of the issues that are taking place in the evidence area in the administrative part of the department. We have developed job descriptions for those 2 captain positions. Those are exempt positions. The legal review is underway right now. We've developed job description for a dispatcher supervisor position. That's a union employee and a first line supervisor that's being submitted for a legal review. We've developed a job description for the detective sergeant, the detective supervisor position. Again, that's a first line supervisor. And we have developed a specific list of job duties and responsibilities for those supervisory positions. And in my book back there, for those two captains, the operations captain and the administrative captain, the job duties and responsibilities, the thing that you divide up, all of the activities within the department, you divide those up into those two categories, operations and administration, is 19 pages long. Those are the duties and responsibilities of a captain within this job or within this organizational chart. It's pretty complex, and there's a lot of detail in those 19 pages. And right this minute, the police department has nobody in those positions. So the question would be, who's doing that work? And the answer is, you already know the answer. Sometimes nobody's doing that work. And so it's not getting managed. A lot of the things that are going on over there are getting monitored, and they're getting monitored from a distance. You need someone, you need those two positions. I'm telling you, those two positions are absolutely critical to the continued operations of the police department and the future success of the police department. Sergeants, the patrol sergeants, they will have some individual responsibilities. So each one of those sergeants, but what you don't want to do as the chief of police is you don't want to overburden those guys and gals, because you want them to be first line supervisors. You want them to be out there on the road with your folks, helping respond to calls, being there as someone who can provide advice, leadership, guidance, and direction out there on the street. There are some administrative duties that you have to assign to them. And so, but that is a delicate balance in that. You need a dispatcher supervisor. I will tell you that there are things not getting done within your communications center over there that are absolutely critical to operations. There are some things that LEADS requires. There are some things that NCIC requires. And there are some other things that the federal government requires to be done. Some of those things, they need to be tightened up just a bit. And some of that is going to be through training, which we've already got scheduled for the dispatchers. But a dispatcher supervisor will take a number of administrative duties away from those captains and those first line supervisors. And they will be able to do some of those things, like pull data, like audit your warrants, like keep you out of trouble, because you don't want to arrest somebody on a Friday and Monday's a holiday, and so they don't get to the judge until Tuesday, and they shouldn't have been arrested in the first place, right? And so those are some of the things that when you audit and do your audits properly within the administrative part of a communications center, those things will not happen to you because you've audited those processes, whether it's warrants, whether it's all of your other entries into NCIC or into LEADS. So, but also pulling data. One of the things that they can do is they can pull data. Nobody knows how to go into the CAD or go into Central Square and pull that data right now like it should be. The chief should have data at his fingertips on a regular basis. He should know and understand what's going on in this city, whether the different crimes and violations are on the increase or the decrease. And the only way he can know that is to look at the data. And I'm not sure that there's a systematic way of doing that inside your department right now. There is a way to do it, but the training's not there. And so we're gonna fix that. Understanding the challenges brought about by the current staffing levels of the agency, and also I'll add to that, understanding that there was just a levy that just failed. Statistic reported by the FBI indicate the nationwide average is 2.4 officers per 1,000 inhabitants, right? And if you do if you look at the current composition for the Circleville Police Department's 25 officers, they are not at 25 officers, but that's the current composition. The current census reports for the city of Circleville indicate approximately 14,000 residents, or inhabitants as they refer to them. The national average math is 14 times 2.4, which is 33.6 officers. And so when you have a shortage like that, you have shortages on shift coverage, you have increased response times, you have officer fatigue, which results in officer safety issues, and it also puts a community at risk. So those are Those are not my numbers. Those are from the FBI. Facility needs. I'm gonna pick up speed here just a little bit. Renovation of the entire first level of the municipal building. It's been a long time since there's been a coat of paint on the walls over there, and many of you have made your way over there, have spoken with those folks over there, and you have walked through and toured that facility, and you know exactly what I'm speaking to here. There's a need to purge all unnecessary furniture and equipment throughout the facility. There's a lot of stuff over there that don't need to be there, and they need to make better use of the space they already have before we start thinking about where to move them to or what to do with future buildings and complexes and all those kind of things. They need to get the best use out of what they already own. They need to audit the furniture and equipment to be removed and disposed of and submit that to the auditor. The communications center needs a redesign, and there needs to be some work that's done inside that communications center to bring them up to speed. And that is already being taken care of, or being addressed, I should say. They need to upgrade the consoles, restroom ventilation. The restroom is right beside them, and so you can imagine what kind of problems that might create. Expand the space for the communications center. There's a glass wall down through there that could be removed and give them another 6 feet of space inside at least 6 feet of space inside there. But those are all things that a contractor can come in and help assess. A filing system, they need to solicit those contractor bids for renovation. Those are things that are already going on. Designate office space, storage space, paint the entire facility. The flooring needs replaced. It's terrible. The evidence locker in the room, the relocation. There's a potential to relocate that evidence locker. There is some conversation with Judge Peters about some assistance with renovating that first floor. And so there's probably some folks who need to sit down and have a conversation and negotiate through that process. I know that Judge Peters would like to have the whole basement for the probation department. And I don't know what that would look like as far as a negotiation on helping with painting and putting floors down in the police department, and maybe there is some funding that she would be able to provide in exchange for some space downstairs. That's what we do. We negotiate, right? And there is some space upstairs that is not being used. There's a Sally port that's they're not going to have prisoners in the police department anymore. That is space that could be used for something else, like an evidence locker, and so it could be easily renovated. A break room with a small kitchenette would be nice for the folks who come there and can't leave the facility, right? The dispatchers, they can't leave because so when they take their lunch break, they have to either bring that with them. So they need a refrigerator and a sink to wash their dishes and all those kind of things, but they also need a place to sit down and eat their dinner. That would be nice instead of fast food every evening. And so those are just some of the creature comforts. Pods and chairs for the police officers in the reports room and computer replacement. Jump on down to training for all personnel. And you've heard me a number of times talking about the training. Determine the training needs. Somebody needs to sit down and assess the training needs within the department and actually map that out. Who needs what and how fast can we get that training for them? And if you're not already looking at training with, and you've not already got your name on a list, right now, you're probably looking at either late 2025 or early 2026 for training. And it's in high demand, right? And so looking at that and determining what your needs are and getting people registered for those courses is critical. Research of training availability, options constantly ongoing. Begin scheduling training immediately. First line supervision training for all current sergeants. That has already been done. They are already scheduled. The chief and captains should be considered for advanced training opportunities such as FBI, SPI, NUDI, CLE, PELC, PSLA. Those are all executive level, command level training courses. There is some potential research potential electronic training records. Most of the training records for all of your police officers are just photocopies in a file. There's not really a list, an electronic list. Training for the dispatcher corps is essential. Again, I've already spoken to that. Leeds, NCIC, NICS, Central Square. There's a lot of room there for some improvement. Training for the evidence locker custodians. We have already made some arrangements for canine training with OSP and other law enforcement agencies in the region. And communications, the public information officer training for senior leadership. Administrative organizational needs. Establish a follow-up system for the entire administrative process. So one of the questions that I asked when I first got there was, how often do you, and then you can put anything in there. How often do you audit your warrants? How often do you look at payroll? How often do you, as a supervisor, look at, and you put anything in there? And a lot of times, what I would get is, again, the deer in the headlights. I said, so how do you know what to do every day when you come in here? How do you know what needs to get done? How do you know who needs to do it? And how do you know how often it needs to get done? That's what a follow-up system will do. One of those does not currently exist at your police department. Now, today, somebody sent me a picture of one. So I guess there is one that exists, but it doesn't have anything in it, right? And so a follow-up system would be a file with 1 through 31 for the days of the month and 12 months. And so that every day, when the first person who comes in takes November 12th, takes the documents out of November 12th, and takes it and puts it in the in bucket of everybody who has that responsibility. So if it's a warrant audit, it would go to the captain of administrations. It goes in his in bucket or her in bucket. They then take that out. They go step by step on that document and go audit the warrants and do it exactly the way it is. And on the back of that sheet, in an ideal world, they would initial off on it and put the date. Take it back in and put it in their out bucket. So the next morning on the 13th, when the secretary comes through, pulls out the 13th, goes through the offices and puts in the in bucket. When she puts this in the in bucket, she takes that out of the out bucket. And by the time she gets back to her office, she puts it in the next date that responsibility is to be handled, right? So it's just a daily follow-up. That's all it really is. And it makes sure that everything gets done, everything gets touched that needs to be touched. It goes to the person who is responsible for it, and then that person signs off on it. So we have a record of who did it and when. So everything that needs to get done gets done within the agency. That currently is not in place, and so we do things that we just know need to get done. And so the question then is when you're on vacation, who does that? Most of the time, it doesn't get done, right, until somebody comes back. And so those are the kind of things that need to be put in place. Establish a systematic review process of agency policies and procedures. I'm going to jump on down. Job duties for supervisors. Establish a vision. This is something that supervision would do in conjunction with the people the police officers, is to develop a vision, develop a mission statement, determine what the core values are. Social media presence. There needs to be a reviewed focus on social media presence. Again, the roll call and read and sign needs to be, supervisor needs to be involved and engaged. Community engagement, there needs to be a renewed effort on community engagement. And then a working group to pursue the Ohio Collaborative Law Enforcement Accreditation Program and using that to build everything else on. The civil service process, there's a civil service process and those promotions. The men and women of the police department do not understand that process, and they don't know what it takes to get to that next level. They don't know what the things are they need to be doing while they're a police officer to prepare them to be a first-line supervisor. The first-line supervisors do not know and understand what needs to be done, what kind of things they need to be doing to prepare themselves for that next level of supervisory, right? The command level. They don't know what those are, and so we need to help them understand what those are. And so, but those need to be something that would be periodically reviewed in the read and sign for those guys and gals. so that they understand what those do. So I'm going to read real fast now. I'm really going to pick up the speed. Things we have already begun working on. You've got a chief that was sworn in. You had one sergeant that was sworn in. You now have another sergeant positions open. It could be sworn in. You have a second secretary position that was posted. You have a part-time police officer that was posted. He starts on the 11th or on the 18th of this month. Chief Fisher has already been to the new chief school. He has already attended that. He has already been approved by the OACP to join the OACP, but he's also been assigned a mentor. They have a mentorship program, and he's already been assigned a mentor who is a good friend of mine, and he couldn't have picked a better guy. And in fact, he reached out to him early on, and that chief sent him some information about job descriptions and a organizational chart. It is exactly what we have presented to you this evening. And so there's a lot of people who know that that system will work. We have a training scheduled for first line supervisors. The chief has already signed up for Northwestern School of Police Staff and Command. It's an online course for 2025. We've drafted the two secretaries' duties and responsibilities. We have job descriptions for the captains and job postings. Those are being reviewed by legal. We have a dispatcher job description and posting, which is also under review. We have specific captains' duties and responsibilities that we have already drafted for both operations and administration. I told you it was 19 pages long. The evidence locker training and equipment replacement is already in the process. The renovation process, contractors, they're working on contractors to get them in to provide estimates on bids for the project. Professional assessments of the facility. We have some folks who actually do professional communication centers. They're coming to actually assess that room over there and see what they would suggest. They've already assigned the office space and the storage space. Training is being scheduled for all dispatchers with leads, NCIC and NICS. We've drafted a composition for the ordinance for the police department. The K-9 program has been connected with OSP's commanders to provide assistance with training records, and overall operations of the K-9 program. And beginning from, they are actually in the process of beginning to frame the administrative functions of the administration or of the department. And I'll just real quick, and this is just a snapshot. They're putting together follow-up, policy and procedure, duties and responsibilities of each section, scheduling of personnel. Scheduling is an issue. Payroll, warrants, evidence, court documents, data collection, query. This is all for the command staff. Monitoring criminal and administrative investigations, performance evaluations, rotation of policy and procedure, legal reviews, case law changes, training schedules, review of body camera videos, after action reviews of critical incidents. Those have not been done, or they have been done rarely. Evidence locker audits, scheduling meetings with public officials, and that's just to name a few of the things that they're already working on developing within the police department. And so Chief Fisher has been leading the charge to make the changes and implement many of those recommendations that I have made to him. He has embraced the leadership of the department. He has a passion for what he is doing. He is supported by his wife and his family and what he is trying to do. They understand, well, I won't say that they understand the depth and the level of engagement that it's going to take from him to actually get this police department to where they really want to be as a premier agency. And I hear the bell ringing, and that means that I've been talking for exactly 1 hour, right? And so he wants to make the community safe for you and your family, for him and his family. He has a passion. He has the support of those people that are over there working for him. But there are some things, and I will tell you, there are some things that need to be done to solidify that operation over there. And one of those things, and I know I'm coming to you probably at a bad time, and I'm saying this probably at a bad time when you just had a levy fail, but they're and I'm not a financial guy. I have a financial planner, right? And he usually tells me my ideas are terrible. But one of the things that I do know is the best time to buy is when the market has bottomed and has just started to come up, right? And so that's when you buy, right? that market over there in your police department has bottomed out. I will tell you, I hope and pray that they have bottomed out and they are starting to come back. And so there's some life over there. There's some people with some energy, enthusiasm, and a great deal of optimism over there. They are young and they are impressionable. They are not old dogs, new tricks thing. It's not that, right? These guys are impressionable and they want to do a good job. They're here for a reason. I believe that. I don't just stand in front of you and tell you. If it wasn't so, I wouldn't say it, right? I think you have a good core group of people over there. I think you have all the right ingredients. They've bottomed out and they're starting back up. Now's the time to invest. If you want a return on your investment, now's the time to do it. I know that sounds crazy that you just lost. You're going to try to figure that budget and all those kind of things out. But I will tell you that if you want to make a significant impact in the future operations of the department, these recommendations will do that for you. And so I'll take your questions if you have some.
Paul, I'll let you take a breath. Thank you very much. You did good because we said we'd try about an hour and you did it. So
Did it? Yeah.
congratulations. Committee, what I want to tell you is last week on November the 7th, Paul shared his initial report with a group of us. Again, it was the mayor, the safety director, the law director, our new police chief, myself, and as Paul mentioned, it was a 4+ hour meeting because we talked about a lot of these different things in depth and down in the weeds. What I took away from that meeting is when we were in that, I took away 4 major things. You heard him say it: training, 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 all the way down from the chief, all the way down to the brand new police officers. That's important. And how does that get accomplished? Through our law director, our safety director, and our police chief, getting those classes scheduled, being able to allow people to take time off to go to the trainings, backfilling. That's all accomplished by members of the administration. He talks about the ordinances and the policies that need reviewed and how things need to be matched and mirrored with ORC and our city ordinances. Again, that's going to be the work of the law director and the safety director and the chief working on reviewing those policies. Eventually, there may be things coming to city council that got to go through committee that need amended or adopted to help get things cleaned up around procedures and policies for the police department. Thirdly, restructuring. As Paul's mentioned, there's a restructure here. When it's time, it'll go to the safety committee. There'll be a legislation to restructure the department. And when Rob works with the law director to get Jeff's committee, that's where that'll eventually flow through. That's a council action. He talks about building improvements. As you all know, between the dispatch room, the evidence room, and the building as a whole, it needs a makeover. That takes money. There's where council comes in. We got to appropriate money to get that work done, and they're getting contractor quotes to help get all that done. But having said all of that, as you know, we did have a safety levy not pass, and so funds will be reduced starting next year. So I told the mayor during our meeting, I know she's not here tonight, she's at a mayor's conference in Florida. I said, Mayor, you have some major decisions to make coming up in the very near future. Because of those cuts and reductions that need to be done, there'll be some major decisions need to be made. And ultimately, she will be coming to council with some recommendations because council controls the budget. And we'll have to see what those recommendations are. So that was my 4 takeaways. Paul's here to take any of your questions, so please ask away. Anybody have anything they want to think? Tom?
In the weeds, you talk about stock bottoming out and moving forward. How do we determine what that is so we can find out what it would cost?
I think one of the things is for the powers to be, and I'm not exactly sure who that is, determine what that pay range is for those 2 captain positions. That's a piece that when we have already kind of developed, and of course, all of this needs to be worked with the folks from the Civil Service Commission to make sure that we've drafted it to fit with the rules and regulations as that are in place. But there's some pieces there, especially on that compensation, that needs to be kind of a part of this posting. And I don't think it's really hard science to figure that if you want quality people, sometimes you have to pay for that. And sometimes, you can, and so if you would, if the folks who make those determinations put that piece in with what has already been drafted and being reviewed by our legal counsel, we could get those things posted and find out whether or not, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't have the time to actually dive into, and I don't really think it was a part of what I was supposed to be doing, was to dive into the budget and look at where you could get that from and all those things. That's not for me to determine or even make a recommendation on. But if there was a way to, at least right now, those two captain positions are incredibly important to the operation, just because right now there is nobody to do those functions. It doesn't exist. And so you've got a hodgepodge, and I will share this with you. A police officer said to me, he said, when we were talking about training and those kind of things, and pouring into the people that are below you to someday, and trying to help them get to a point where they're going to take your place someday. That's not been going on. And so one of the things that we talked about in the training aspect is that, and somebody said, we're doing the best we can. I said, I know you're doing the best you can. And we're applying common sense to everything. And that's a great way to do that. But a force multiplier is the training piece, and that's what's missing, right? And so the training piece is absolutely critical. And so, but you've got so many pieces in there that are not being touched every day, that need to be touched by people who understand how to run an organization. And those people don't exist right now. And that is where, if you put those two captains positions in there, now with the budget, I understand budgets well enough. I've worked with them. And I know that that's going to mean, okay, if I'm going to spend money here, I'm not going to spend money over here. And so I'm not going to maybe be able to hire a couple more police officers or a secretary or maybe a dispatcher. I might have to hold off on those positions. But then but what you've got to have the conversation is what is absolutely critical to the operations over there. And I will tell you, from my perspective, my professional opinion is that those two positions need to be filled. And what you're looking for there, and how we craft that with our friends from the civil service, what you're looking for there really is a seasoned administrative person who has, maybe even a retired person who has administrative skills, who has been there and done that. Someone who can help Kenny understand how to be a good chief, and at the same time keep a watch care over the people underneath him, lead, guide, and direct those people underneath him, speaking from his experience, his or her experience from the past, right? And so you need I want to say a seasoned, salty person who can help manage people above him and help manage people below him at the same time, and help Kenny kind of get his arms around being the chief of police, because hopefully he's going to be there for a while for you. So those two positions are incredibly important. I don't know enough about your budgeting process to tell you any deeper than that. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Other question?
Good briefing.
What I will say is that if any council member has the opportunity or want to go have follow-up questions, get more into the weeds and the details of his findings, have other comments you want, Paul's going to be available. Paul is not done today. He's not going to leave us. It's my intent for Paul to be around through at least the end of the year, because as all those things he's mentioned, we have a new safety director, we have a new chief of police. There's still work that Paul can do to help the department, to help mentoring, to help work on a specific project. You'll see a request Thursday at Finance Committee to appropriate some more money so Paul can stay with us to continue to do this good work. So, someday Paul will say, Circleville, best of luck to you, but I think there's still plenty of work for him to do for us. So again, he's going to be around if you want to follow up one-on-one with him, to go over the findings, to ask questions, to talk about next steps and path forwards. Okay. Sherry?
I just want to say I really like your recommendation to update the building, the physical area that they work in, because I think that's critical. If you have surroundings that are full of junk and boxes all over, that just negatively affects your whole psychological profile. And if it's cleaned up and it looks new and fresh, fresh paint job, move some offices around. Those things can be done relatively low cost. I would think, depending on how extensive you want to do, but that can really have a major impact on the whole force feeling like, this is a new operation we've got going on here. It's a new day in the police force.
I'll just piggyback on that. When I went over there, having a chair to sit in, the smell of sewage when you walk in the dispatch room, that's terrible. I had the opportunity to visit with Mabel and go into the dispatching room, and there's stuff sitting there that they don't know whether they can throw away. The smell of that, and then just they have their own coffee pot there. We don't even provide a coffee pot, and a sink for them to clean the stuff in. Those are some things. And then you walk into the administrative offices, and it's a dark gray like dungeon and dingy carpet. That's it's just I wouldn't want to show up and work there. So those are some things that I saw from being there. But then also to piggyback, you've been very respectful and responsible with what we've asked you to do. I know I've reached out to you a few times. He does a great job of getting back to you and answering questions and sitting down and taking time with you. So I just want to say thank you for what you've done and how you've responded to questions and spending time with us as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd like to think, I've heard Paul say the word purge many, many times. The building needs purged.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know I've been through the building too, and the salad port is no ways near functioning as a salad port. It's a catch-all. It needs cleaned out, and Paul's got recommendations on how that room could be improved to help the building overall. But, relatively, it's a modern building from the outside, but once you get inside, it needs some help.
Just needs updated.
It needs help, needs purged.
And purged, yeah. Absolutely.
All
You
those
mean 1960 wasn't the last time we needed it to purge it?
Yeah. Other questions? Well, Paul, thank you very much for being here and providing the work you've done. Look forward to more work to go. Appreciate it very much.
If I could just add,
Yeah, go
if I
ahead.
could just add one thing. Again, you all have my contact information. Please reach out to me if you have any questions tomorrow. You think of something, I'll get back to you. But I also want to let you know that you have an incredible resource right here in your safety director. He's been a chief of police in 2 different cities, got 25 years of experience in the law enforcement. He understands, he can finish my sentences, I can finish his. We understand this gig, so to speak. And so he's a tremendous resource. If and when I'm gone and fishing again, you still have a resource right here that understands the business. And he's going to be a great help to Kenny. There's some other things that we're doing to help Kenny, but he's a great resource for him as well. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. And you're right. And I know also during our meeting last week, I asked the mayor, because we're going to have these recommendations, and there's a whole list of go-dos, around timelines of things getting done. Because I know I will ask of the administration, but like, hey, when will we see that restructuring ordinance? When will we work on getting the building cleaned? Because you got to move on these things and get them done, and just don't let it become stale. And but she said she wanted time to receive the report, digest it, come up with a plan on multiple parts of it. I recommend she do that as the mayor of the city, working with the director. So anyways, but I just know that I hope all of you as well will keep reminding her of, hey, where are we out on this next step on getting this department headed in the right path? And I think they're headed in the right path, but we still have a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
I think so.
So
Yep.
thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee, we have one more thing on our agenda, and that is an executive session. So Sherry has a motion for us.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee or official pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22 G1. And I would like to include all of council,
The law
law director, the safety director, I
That's
assume.
it. And so it'll include the law director and the safety director. Is there a second to that motion? So moved by Tom Duvall. Roll call, please, on the motion to go to executive session.
Tice,
Yes.
Blitzka,
Yes.
Hallinan,
Yes.
Moats,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Duval.
Yes. We will only come back in regular session to adjourn. Okay. Thank you.